You're listening to Stay on Topic, episode 20.5. You want to hit us up by email, if you still do that thing. It's stayontopic111@gmail. I'm on Twitter @Giltastrophe. James is on Twitter
@PostJM9.
And so is Bob.
@Bob Ricotta.
And to my left is the Widowmaker, Bob Ricotta.
How you doing today?
Doing spunky. And to his left is the ass manager at... Wait, nope, read that wrong. The assistant managing editor at The Leader, James Post.
I like the first one better.
Yeah.
As do we all. And it's much more accurate. And I'm Chris Gill, who has spent the last 10 days without Wi-Fi. And my new place will never be this clean ever again.
Yeah, but looking good.
Looking damn good. So, busy little time off we had. We had, what, about 10 day or 8 days?
9 days, yeah.
9 day break.
Yeah,
almost
almost one Scaramucci.
Is that how we're going to measure time from now on?
Yeah.
And Scaramucci's?
He'd been around long enough that we talked about him briefly last time, and he's gone by the time we came back. So,
yeah. So, just a couple stupid notes. According to the Whomp, fans spend more than 24 hours watching commercials during a typical NFL season. If they were to watch all 17 games of their favorite team, how many actual game hours do you think they watch in 17 games? Or 17 weeks, sorry.
I don't understand the question.
So your total time spent watching a football broadcast.
Right.
And you're watching 16 of them.
Well, I think I do what you do, and you pause the game, come back 45 minutes into the game, and then just fast forward through the commercials.
So are we talking actual hours?
Actual hours spent watching people run around and throw things.
Against 24 hours of commercials?
Yes.
I'm going to say 60.
4 hours is all you're really watching of on-field action in 16 games of an NFL season.
We're counting like in play.
In play.
Oh, from the time the ball is snapped
the rest
until
of the
whistle.
broadcast are commercials, them showing coaches on the sideline, showing the announcers.
So are we acknowledging that football is a terrible sport? I actually have nothing against football, but I mean that it is stop and go, and God TV took all possible advantage of that.
Yeah, boy howdy. Yeah. And yet it's still number one. I mean, the numbers are slipping. You know, the next generation I don't think is gonna keep it up there, but it's still the most watched sport in America.
Yeah.
But you're only watching 4 hours of your favorite team actually do stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. Michelle Carter was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and is going to spend 15 months in prison at the age of 20.
Yeah.
And then she'll have 5 years probation for talking her boyfriend into committing suicide via text message.
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel about the ruling. I don't know how to feel about this case.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you end up with involuntary manslaughter. Which is, I believe, that was the conviction, right?
Yep.
And that's one of the most evil things. Like, you hear about, people committing really heinous acts, but they're mostly like, they happen quickly. They happen,
right.
They're not considered in the way this was.
And over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was really sinister stuff. Yeah, for listeners who may not know, via text message, she talked her boyfriend, Conrad Roy, to get into his truck, which was filling with carbon monoxide. And he'd been threatening for a while, or it alluded to wanting to kill himself. And she went from being supportive to then goading him into it.
Yeah.
There was no financial gain for her. To what end did she do this?
The prosecutor claims that she wanted people to feel bad for her, and this was a huge attention-getting.
Oh my
thing.
God!
Yeah, that was the prosecution's.
Sure.
So yeah, but just a really weird case that could only happen in this day and age,
right?
And it's I say, involuntary manslaughter seems insufficient, but at the same time, I can see a jury coming back and saying, how much impact can talk have on a person? How much responsibility can you have for, how many times I don't think I've ever said it just because I take the issue very seriously, but, just telling somebody, kill yourself is, just sort of a throwaway insult.
Right.
So I don't know. It's on one side, I feel like that's not enough for what feels like a really horrific act. And at the same time, I'm surprised that a prosecutor was able to get a conviction and prison time.
Yeah. And she was 17 when this happened. She's 20 years old now.
Yeah.
So you have to, man, you got to take that into account. I mean,
and as you point out, this is truly a crime for this day and age. I mean, I can't imagine something like this happening in the day of the Pony Express, for example.
Yeah.
or even Telegraph.
Telegraph, I can see.
Semaphore?
Okay, you know what? Moving on.
Just keep seeing the scenarios of the Pony Express.
Bob, you have a talent for just sucking the compassion out of a room.
I just have a talent for sucking in general.
Yeah, that one's going to hang with me for a while.
What else you got?
Also, the Secret Service may be vacating Trump Tower due to a lease dispute. Yeah, that just broke today. Today is Thursday, August 3rd. Apparently, there is a lease dispute at Trump Tower, and the Secret Service may have to vacate the premises. There are not a lot of details yet, but
that's strange.
It's beyond strange, and only in this day and age at Trump Tower. Back in the news, like real news, we mentioned him right at the outset, the Scaramucci scale.
Yeah.
How many days is a Scaramucci now?
Well, it's 10.
10, okay.
Basically. A couple of little things I wanted to bring up before we get into that, though. Not fun, but just in the realm of why. Nathaniel Glover, age 57, known as the Kid Creole, was a founding member of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Charged with murder and the stabbing death of a 55-year-old homeless man in Manhattan.
Oh, yeah.
Was walking by and apparently thought the alleged victim had been flirting with him. So felt obligated to stab him to death.
Oh, good.
Obviously,
God.
all of this alleged, but...
So, homophobia gone horribly awry.
Yeah, and I don't know if we'll see the gay panic defense again here.
Right,
I don't know,
yeah.
but it's just... And it's just not what I think of when I think of Grandmaster Flash. It's not... it's not... It was so far before the era of, gangster rap and that need to keep up a appearance of being, a hard street gangsta type who has to protect their reputation. It was such a different time, and if you listen to the message, it's just so earnest.
Yeah,
and it just doesn't. Obviously, people are people, and I don't know anything about Kid Creole in particular,
right?
But just not what I want to think about when I think about that group, which basically is credited with the creation of rap as we know it.
Well, he was furious. It's right in the name.
Just keep going back to Pony Express.
Yeah.
Moving on.
And one other thing, I don't know if either of you saw this, and I don't have much detail at this point, but just in the last couple of hours, the Wall Street Journal has been reporting that Special Counsel Robert Mueller is actually using a grand jury
Did see that.
In this ongoing probe into Russian ties to the Trump campaign.
And that's literally all I know about it.
And that's something to follow, but that's breaking right now. That's literally all we know. Didn't want it to slip by.
No. Certainly I saw a really good, already a meme about that. The bat signal was Mueller says grand jury in the clouds. It was pretty good.
So yeah, Scaramucci.
A Scaramucci is now 10 days.
Yes. And we talked about in our last podcast, we did talk about the start of his tenure.
I've been without the internet for a Scaramucci.
Yeah. And I don't think anyone really missed what was effectively the cause of the end of his tenure. A incredibly ill-conceived conversation with a reporter on the record.
Yeah.
In which he said, vulgar and obviously incredibly offensive things about other members of the White House staff and threatened the reporter. And, which kind of brings me to the main note that I bring away from this, which is how can you bring in a guy as communications director who completely does not understand his relationship with the press?
Yeah.
I don't, he's a hedge fund guy, no government experience, but how does he end up in that job when he doesn't understand that when he says all this stuff and doesn't make any attempt to go off the record?
Especially as antagonistic and hostile as this administration has been to the press, they are going to write and record everything you say.
Yes. And this was a conversation with Ryan Lizza of, was it the Times?
I thought it was the Wall Street Journal.
Just a moment.
So while James Googles.
And I guess my question is, would Scaramucci have been fired if not for the new chief of staff?
The New Yorker.
Okay, New Yorker. All right. Not the most friendly of outlets to the president. You would think that Scaramucci would have the presence of mind to choose his words more carefully. It's not like he's in friendly company.
Well, it seemed like if you go through the conversation, he felt like he was in the position of power from the beginning. This started as a threat to Lizza to reveal his sources. And, just escalated from there. And apparently just never occurred to him that all of this was on the record. All of this was going to appear in print.
Yeah, it goes right back to your basic question. How do these people not understand or get it with the press yet?
And, just going back to my own experience as a reporter. And I actually have really loose standards when it comes to on the record, off the record. When it comes to your average person who doesn't deal with the press all the time, I ask a person if they want to be on the record before I take quotes. I just think that's clearer for people who aren't used to the situation.
I'll go even one further. When someone says something questionable, I would ask them, was that on the record?
Yeah.
Just to, give them a chance to walk it back.
But when it comes to public officials,
you guys are way too kind.
People who are used to dealing with the press, unless you say off the record,
Yeah.
you're on the record.
That's how I approached every interview.
Yeah.
And granted, I did sports, so it wasn't groundbreaking stuff. But
well, I mean, I think it's telling that this guy did not come from a communications or journalist background. So maybe he thought the vowel at the end of his name allowed him to Goodfella his way through this. And I can say that.
Has that worked for you?
Not so much. But it is.
Not even a little bit?
Maybe a little bit. me and Joey Bats. So what do you think? Do you think Scaramucci would have kept his job if not for the new chief of staff?
I don't see.
No, I think that was all part of the same process. I think that was, we've got to deal with this. You know, we need to bring in a new sheriff, and that's, you know.
So the bringing in of the new chief of staff was a reaction to, not a result. Okay,
and that's just my obviously very outside opinion, but that's kind of the way it read to me. And you know, Priebus obviously could not keep this team in line,
and who called?
I don't know who could.
No,
who called Priebus, by the way? Thank you very much. I'm like the writing wasn't on the wall. I'm taking, you know.
I mean,
we've been calling Priebus since our first podcast.
That's true.
Pretty much.
I mean, the fact he lasted this long, way to go, Rance.
Well, and that leads me right into my next point, which is, you know, Priebus out, and no real reason given.
And the way that he was,
just kind of
left on the tarmac.
Yeah, just kind of dumped on the tarmac after an Air Force One trip. So, I mean, other than the obvious results that we've seen of him obviously not being able to rein in, you know, the leaks and whatever else, no specific reason given by the president or anyone in the press office. Excuse me, anyone in the press office.
Not even on Twitter.
No. Does it just come down to an extremely delayed reaction from what was really a mismatch to begin with?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think Bob said it, or somebody said it. Who can rein any of these people in? I mean, it's got to be like herding cats.
I'm not sure exactly about the timing of this, but it would not surprise me if this is a reaction to the failed healthcare vote in Congress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Priebus was the
establishment guy.
He was the connection to Congress and congressional Republicans. And I've got a question for you guys a little later on, but Trump is pissed at congressional Republicans right now.
Yeah.
And
they're pissed at him.
Sure. So what better way to express that than to boot their guy out of power?
That's kind of where I was leaning. Trump basically took Priebus on to make the establishment happy. And he's like, this is what I get when I listen to you. I mean, now who the hell knows what we're going to get out of the White House? I mean, it kind of seems like the last link to the Republican establishment.
Yeah.
So let me pose this to you guys. Are congressional Republicans in full revolt right now?
Well, and you know, that's in my notes for later conversation, but we can certainly get to it now.
I mean, okay, so I've got a litany of things. They've got the failed healthcare votes, the Russia sanctions that they pushed through against Trump's wishes. They just passed the health insurance subsidies that would have killed Obamacare if not funded. The whole transgenders in the military. Trump tweeted that there would be no more transgender people in the military. Congress said, whoa, let's study this. We're not going to make law by tweet. And then there's the whole immigration thing. Trump wanted to have a test for immigrants. Only high-value immigrants would be able to enter the country. And some members of Congress is saying, we're not going to pass this. Yeah. So is Congress just saying we're not beholden to the president? He's dragging down our party. He's dragging down our ticket. And so we're going to do what's in our best interest.
Well, and that's, you know, that Congress is already moving on talking about tax reform. And there's already talk out of people like Orrin Hatch, who's the finance committee chairman in the Senate. Obviously a guy who's been around a long time. Basically blowing off the priorities that came from the White House, 5 months ago, as far as what they wanted in a tax plan. Like that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of talk in the media at this point. There's been, think pieces in the Washington Post. about whether Congress is just going forward with its own agenda. And right now their plan is to ignore President Trump.
Yeah.
Well, I think Trump's approval rating right now is 37%.
Yeah.
So,
and it's worse than it sounds. I was reading some sort of background on polling, I think from Vox, that pointed out that it's not just that the combination of strongly approve and somewhat approve has gone down. It's that the balance of somewhat disapprove and strongly disapprove has shifted much more towards strongly disapprove. Strongly disapprove is at something like 48% now. So the middle ground is going away. So that 37% approval number is actually, in a way, overstating, how good things are for the president.
So given all we've talked about in the last 10 minutes, could we see some Republican defections? Could we see some Republican senators pull an Arlen Specter and say, this isn't my party anymore, I'm going to start caucusing with the Democrats?
I don't see that happening.
I could see maybe a couple shift independent.
Yeah.
I can't see him go left.
No, because from their perspective, what they're seeing is not the party shifting. It's that they have a president who isn't representative of their party. They feel like they're the real Republicans. They're not going to give up that label.
No, I could see him even go not just go independent with libertarian values, but go full libertarian and try to really get that party up and going.
And correct me if I'm wrong, they can go independent, they can go libertarian. That doesn't shift the balance until they say who they're going to caucus with.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, and they can call themselves Whigs. It's just a matter of who are they going to
like Bernie
with.
Sanders isn't independent, but he caucuses with the Democrats. Therefore, he's counted in their number.
Right.
Yeah.
So it would take 3 defections to flip the House.
I see. That's where you were going. Okay.
Well, I got
the Senate
or the Senate. I'm sorry. It would take 3. I've got a list of 6 who, in one way or another, do not like President Trump. Lindsey Graham hates President Trump.
Has from like the very start.
Yeah. We've got Murkowski and Collins, who are the heroes of healthcare, in my opinion.
Yeah, they were there long before McCain was.
Yes. Dean Heller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dean Heller is the most endangered senator who's up for re-election in 2018 from the Republican side. And then we've got our 2 boys from Arizona, John McCain and Jeff Flake. Flake just wrote a scathing editorial about President Trump and how he doesn't represent conservative values. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that 3 of these guys say, hey, we're going to vote Republican, but we're going to caucus with the Democrats and give Chuck Schumer the majority just to stop the Trump agenda.
Yeah, but there's so many personal things going on there. That is a giant middle finger to Mitch McConnell before it's a middle finger to the president.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, when you talk specifically about, because they come up so much, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. Collins, beloved in Maine.
Yep.
I think she got 68% in her last race. I don't think she gets reelected if she runs as a Democrat.
Probably not.
She may be the most centrist Republican in the Senate, but in Maine, she's got to run as a Republican. Murkowski, same thing. She's beloved to the point where she lost her primary and won as a write-in for a Senate seat.
Right. See,
and still, she's got to be a Republican and seen as a Republican to keep that seat in Alaska.
I don't think so. I think some senators are so respected and have such a strong record that they're almost party proof. They can run as a Democrat and say, look what I've done for the people of Maine or people of Alaska. I'm going to continue to do that. I just don't trust the current administration. I think they'd still get elected. It would be
Collins may be near that point. She's been around long enough, to have sort of the Arlen Specter shield.
Right.
Murkowski, I don't think has. I think too many people would turn on her.
Speaking of turning on people, instead of Bob's defection theory, wouldn't or couldn't this point to a possible impeachment? If what's happening in the Senate is representative of what's happening in the House that we're not hearing about, just because there's so many more members and it's...
But the House is much more subject to gerrymandering.
Yeah, and the House is fundamentally more conservative.
Yeah.
I mean, it just
No,
is.
I mean about elected leaders moving on impeaching Trump. Not defecting, not going to another party or anything, but so fed up with what's going on that if Mueller's investigation finds something, that they might actually turn on the president.
Well, and that depends on what Mueller's investigation finds.
Right.
And I think the House follows public opinion. If Trump dips
Which
below...
is what the House was created to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. If Trump's popularity dips below 34, 33, then it makes it much easier for the House to impeach.
W had a pretty low approval rating.
Never this low.
Okay, but still, the Republicans stuck with him. I don't think the Republicans stick with Trump. If shit starts going bad for him, either via the Russia investigation or Melania showing everyone the P-tape, I want to see the P-tape.
You insist there's a P-tape.
There is a P-tape.
Well, not only that, but you're still stuck on this idea that Melania is going to turn on him at some point.
Oh,
She hates him. Oh my God. She hates him more than cheap clothes. So I could absolutely see the Republicans.
Does she hate him more than she likes being first lady?
Good question.
she's like Zsa Zsa Gabor in Green Acres.
My favorite joke during the transition, when she's talking to Michelle Obama in the White House, she's like, "There's no gold in this room. Are you poor?" That was funny. Anyway, that's where I could see this leading. I don't know if we would get party defections out of this, but I could absolutely see people's Republicans turning on Trump and saying, "Nope, enough."
Yeah. He becomes a lame duck 8 months into his presidency.
Yeah. Or some of them might grow a conscience and view him as a liability to the country.
Yeah. I think Jeff Flake is already there.
Yeah.
I think Lindsey Graham is already there. John McCain is probably already there.
That's why I use your list. If that's indicative of what's happening in the House that we're not hearing about. Just saying.
I read an interesting story on Vox about Democrats shouldn't gloat about President Trump losing his power and his public appeal, because typically when presidents lose popularity, they go to their strong suit. Trump's strong suit, where he is more popular, is bombing people.
Yes.
So could Trump's ramp up some kind of action in Syria just to
North
get his
Korea? I mean, he's been barking about that.
Yeah, that's
for the last week and a half.
I think he's even too smart to stick his hand in that hornet's nest.
Really?
James?
He doesn't need a congressional declaration of war.
We already got one.
Yeah, we remain at war with North Korea. I don't. Again, this is where none of us are really qualified to talk about foreign policy, but I don't think talk of some kind of concrete action against North Korea is insane at this point, given their recent missile tests.
But it should not be unilateral.
No.
Oh.
That's where I'm afraid the president would take this as unilateral, so America would look great. It's like, no, build a coalition, then take them down.
No, America doesn't look great because there's two options there. There's nuclear strikes,
mm-hmm.
and there's taking on a giant army. And their army is bigger than ours in terms of manpower.
Because every man is in it.
And mowing through them would take a while.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we don't have the technology and the capabilities to overcome them, but it's not going to be fast,
and it would come
it's not going to be done in Donald Trump's term, whether he wins a second term or not.
It would be done at great consequence to us.
And what's the old saying about a land war in Asia?
Yeah. But no, I mean, I do think that there needs to be serious talk about what should be done in North Korea.
Well, would anyone ally with us with Trump
at
the helm?
That's the hard part. It's coming at such a bad time.
Yeah. I mean, everybody recognizes that North Korea is a problem, but you really want to team up with Trump? Does Germany, France, Britain? I mean, some of our oldest recent allies, would they be on board with?
Yeah. With North Korea, I don't know what the greater danger is. That the nuclear deterrent that they've apparently developed, fairly effectively at this point, whether it's more dangerous for us not to take it seriously or for us to take it too seriously.
Right.
There's just so much we don't know about the way that country is run and how they react to stimuli.
Stimuli. Not as good as Pony Express. What other topics do you have, James?
Well, I wanted to quickly just jump back because we talked about Priebus being out. We didn't talk about the new sheriff.
Oh, no, we did not.
General John Kelly, former Marine general, had been heading the Department of Homeland Security.
The one area where Trump was semi-successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pretty well-respected guy. I do find it a little odd that for a rich guy from Manhattan, Trump seems much more comfortable with military generals than policy staffers or members of Congress.
He's got daddy issues, and he needs a strong male figure in his life.
Whether John Kelly can, actually keep things together in the West Wing, is unclear so far. I do think it's odd that he keeps just bringing in more and more generals.
Yeah.
It, seems like the kind of thing you do to either head off a potential military coup or set up for one. But it also opens up, a position at Homeland Security that has to be backfilled.
And you've heard, right?
Well, there's been talk about Rick Perry.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Not really, a lot of experience there that I think he brings to the table.
The guy who got punked by the Ukraine jerky boys.
Yeah. Yeah, the guy who spent 22 minutes on the phone with a crank caller pretending to be a Ukrainian ambassador. And somehow we missed that entirely.
I want to hear that recording so bad.
It's like, you got to wonder if at some point the prank caller was starting to get bored. Like, how long is it going to take for this guy to get it?
Yeah, 22 minutes is that's a
long fucking phone call.
Yeah.
But one of the front runners, apparently, Texas Congressman Mike McCall, who's chairman of House Homeland Security, and Texas border state, so apparently that's considered a qualification. But also talk about Jeff Sessions.
Oh, God.
As a way of pushing him out of the AG job, you give him Homeland Security.
So would that be a promotion or a demotion?
It's
lateral.
It's lateral.
Or get out of jail free card.
Yeah, and I mean it gets him sort of out of the line of fire if that's what he wants.
What a mess.
Just send him to Micronesia.
That's the CNN had a list of like 9 potentials. These were the interesting ones. But yeah, it's Rick Perry, again, leaves energy with no secretary, and then you have to backfill that, and at some point eventually I end up Secretary of Labor.
They're gonna get to Sarah Palin eventually.
Yeah. Or Kid Rock.
I'd rather have Kid Rock.
I know, right?
And the other thing is, talk in the House now is on tax reform. But no one's really seen much of a detailed proposal.
Because they can't agree on the same bill.
Yeah,
I mean this was totally evident from the healthcare debacle.
Yeah, the closest we've gotten to a policy position is a joint statement from House and Senate leadership on the Republican side that calls for a bill that, quote, reduces tax rates as much as possible.
Was it longer than a CVS receipt?
I'm sure there was more to it than that, but that's the level we're dealing at. They're not sure how they want to bracket rates. They're not sure what they want to set rates at. They're not sure from what perspective they're going to attack this at all.
No. And they've never done any...
This is another one of those things where, people have been talking, especially people on House Ways and Means, like our own Congressman Tom Reed, have been talking about tax reform for years. And there have been sort of, trial balloons, discussion drafts. But, again, we've, as with healthcare, reached the point where now's the time to do something or not. And there's not a consensus plan.
And it just shows you how little thought they put into any of these plans that they've campaigned on for years.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody has... They've wanted to reform taxes ever since they chased Clinton out, or Clinton finishes second term, but nobody's ever put forth an actual plan. They wanted to repeal and replace Obamacare. Nobody had a plan.
Yeah. And the closest we've gotten was 3-4 years ago when Dave Camp, who was then head of Ways and Means, put forward a discussion draft of a tax reform bill. And it read like a serious document. It was something that would be worth studying, I think, for the people who are trying to put together a plan. But, nothing came of it. And, Camp retired after that. So
now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is the tax bill kind of like healthcare, that it has to be revenue neutral, or you need a supermajority to pass it in the Senate?
That it's not clear how it's not clear if they're going to do the tax bill through reconciliation. Obviously that would be the easiest way, as far as getting the votes they need. But I don't think the planning, at least from what we've seen, has even gotten that far.
We talked about this in February,
but yeah, I mean, if they do it through reconciliation, then it has to decrease the deficit, or it's not reconciliation.
So we talked about this in the winter or early spring. I don't understand the Republicans' priorities, because they are a party in such desperate need of a win.
Yeah.
Infrastructure.
I know, it's right there.
Infrastructure. You can get 90 senators to vote for infrastructure.
But it's spending money.
Yeah, and you say that, but I'm not... 90 senators maybe, but how many in the House?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's got to be, well, I mean,
because fundamentally it costs money.
Right.
That's, Trump had, the pie in the sky plan about trying to attract, just a few $100 million in public investment and then try and bring in private investment to make up the difference. There's not that much profit to be made in infrastructure.
No.
And if there is, it's in basically restructuring the way we handle infrastructure in this country. Going to many, many more toll roads and toll bridges, and in rural areas, there's no money even in that. So those areas would just get, as abandoned and dilapidated as they already are, if not worse.
Well, Trump won election as a populist. He did not win as a conservative. If there's any prayer of him winning re-election, it's as a populist. Populists spend money.
Yeah. Look at Hitler. Built the Autobahn.
All right.
It's a populist that built stuff.
And Godwin says I have to hit the stop button on the recorder now. Godwin's law. The conversation is over when you bring up Hitler.
Okay.
Well, before we end the conversation, what are you guys doing cool?
I'm finishing up season 2 of Master of None.
You like
loving season 2? Very
season
experimental.
2, yeah, it's off kilter from season 1 a lot.
Yes,
which is not a bad thing.
They take chances. It's very experimental. I'm enjoying it. I'm loving Game of Thrones.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Game of Thrones can go off the rails every now and then. Not this season, though. Not yet.
No, it's just so nice. And okay, we're going to spoil some shit. So if you don't want to hear spoilers,
don't spoil too much.
No, but it's just so great to see all these characters finally sharing the same space on a screen.
Yes.
They've been scattered to the winds for 6 years. And, you see Jon Snow and Daenerys talking together. I mean, awesome.
And didn't go the way you thought it would in your fan fiction.
A little bit.
I envision more boners.
But you also get more characters you didn't think you would ever see start to interact. James is falling asleep because he's never watched Game of Thrones.
All right.
The Jaime Lannister...
Tyrell.
House of Tyrell lady.
Yeah, that was great. That was a great scene.
Brilliant. And you never would have even thought you'd see those two share screen time. And it was fantastic. So it's finally seeing a culmination of all this work that we've put into this series, watching it to this point. It's great to get these little payoffs. You see where things are going.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of bracing yourself for that next big.
And we have 3 episodes before it goes on hiatus?
Are we 4 deep already?
We're 3 deep.
3. Okay, so we got 4 this season and then 6 next year.
Okay.
So yeah, Game of Thrones is that thing that it's the only thing I can watch right now because I don't have Wi-Fi. We have to go to our buddy's house to watch it on Sundays. What about you, James?
Well, weird ass shit are you into this week, James?
Well, I really haven't been into much. I've mostly been working and sleeping. I was really looking forward to seeing the Dark Tower movie that comes out tomorrow, as we tape this on Thursday.
Record.
Nope, I'm going with tape. I'm going to put it on tape now. I'll find a way.
Wax.
And just getting brutal early reviews. Reviews brutal enough that some suggest going to see the movie for the spectacle of how bad it is.
Hate watching, I believe the kids call it.
Yeah.
And this is a project that at one point was going to be helmed by Ron Howard and was going to be multiple movies interspersed with multiple seasons of television that would fill in the backstory and leave the main set pieces to the films. That was one of the original plans.
Wow.
And this was going to be the next big thing. This was going to be bigger than Lord of the Rings, as big as Harry Potter. And we end up with, a movie I obviously have not seen yet, but an 88-minute movie to launch what's supposed to be an epic franchise. And, just...
Now we know why Ron Howard isn't attached.
Well, and, who knows what's happened in between there. Supposedly, Stephen King is happy with the result. Supposedly, he was tweeting at the director that he'd done a good job.
Yes.
But, from everything I've heard, this is just a complete shit bucket of a movie.
And this is Stephen King's baby. I mean, this is...
Well, this is the linchpin of the shared Stephen King universe. Something that started to appear in his work in the 80s and sort of grew as people sort of realized that characters recurred even if they were under different names. And The Dark Tower, which started with a novel called The Gunslinger in the 70s and didn't complete until the mid-2000s. 8 books, 4 of which are spectacularly good, the other 4 of which are a little uneven, including the final one. But something that, as a Stephen King fan, which I am, was like a concordance of the Stephen King universe. Like, all of a sudden, this is where everything ties together. This is the world where all these other books we've read connect somehow. And you see characters and locations from other Stephen King books appear in these novels. So this was something, obviously, people had high expectations for. And people thought could be parlayed into big money. And someone screwed this up badly. And, I don't know who at this point. Akiva Gold's been writing with a couple other people, but that was the main name attached. Arcel, I don't remember the last name, but a director who doesn't really have any blockbusters under his belt.
Yeah, Nicola Arcel.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, IMDb. Yeah. I never would have come up with that on my own.
But, I don't know where the ball was dropped. I don't know if it was in the planning. I don't know if somebody balked at the investment, because it sounds like the budget was down from what a lot of people probably expected. But really just really disappointing. And it sounds like, there's going to be a tie-in series. They've brought in somebody who worked on The Walking Dead to be showrunner for the series. They're apparently going forward at this point. But when you bring in Matthew McConaughey as your bad guy, and
you better deliver.
And people are saying he's the worst part of the movie.
Oh, God.
I mean, The Kid is getting better reviews.
Oh, man.
He nailed it in those Cadillac ads, though. Or Buick ads.
Well, this is a relative unknown director.
Yeah.
And McConaughey is pretty much at the peak of his command.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he just walked all over this director. It's like, nope, I'm going to do it my way. I can't do a McConaughey accent. I'm sorry.
The character he's playing is supposed to be... The one review called it the embodiment of evil, and that's not really true. I mean, he's still a henchman.
I always view him as more like Captain Trips type. Just really, really smart, but really twisted. And that's how and this is from, believe me, a way far away of what little I know of the Dark Tower. That's how I always saw it.
Yeah, I mean, he's...
And that's kind of the way King writes his villains.
It's so hard to explain, without spoiling anything. But if you've read any of King's popular works, things like Needful Things or The Stand, or that's a character named Randall Flagg
That's
who,
it. Yeah.
who appears.
Captain Trips is the disease. Randall Flagg is the bad.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's who the Man in Black is. That's his real life work is. He's the Man in Black.
So then he is all the big bads in all the Stephen King novels.
A lot of them, yes.
Okay.
Even Cujo?
No.
Okay.
But yeah, again, hard to get into what makes that character special without spoiling a lot. But, a character that you expect a lot from because he was the big bad in a lot of major Stephen King novels.
So far, you're making it sound like the guy who played Randall Flagg in the Stand television miniseries
Jamie Sheridan
did a better job than Matthew McConaughey in practically
Possibly.
the same role.
Yeah.
Wow.
I actually didn't dislike that TV miniseries.
I did not either.
No, not a. It was.
Some of the casting was odd, but
Well, they wanted names,
yeah.
so that's. I really. Did Molly Ringwald need to be a part of it? Probably.
Molly Ringwald doesn't need to be a part of anything,
Ouch.
including the human race.
Oh, wow.
Jesus Christ. And you were groaning about the Pony Express joke? Just great.
Deep-seated hatred.
This weekend locally, we have NASCAR's 31st appearance at Watkins Glen International. This is the longest running series of any kind at the Glen. And yet people still associate the Glen with Formula One before NASCAR, which is really strange.
What people?
Race fans. They're like, oh, yeah, the old F1 track. Like NASCAR or Watkins Glen is still kind of an oddity on the schedule. It just...
Well, it's only one of two road courses.
Yeah, it's weird, but not a long time ago, but when Ricardo and I covered NASCAR up there, everybody from the South hated the Glen. Fucking hated road racing, didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
It was a shit show. It was awful. And for the second year in a row, it was voted best track on the NASCAR circuit.
Yeah.
Their races always rank in the top 3 of best races of the year over the last, 10 years. So that's the big thing. I'll be up there covering that for the leader, which technically makes James Post my boss for 3 days.
Yeah, won't really have a whole lot of interaction. I'll be covering the news side while you're out at the track having fun.
Or you'll pull the dick move and, hey, go interview some campers.
Oh, been there, done that, man.
Oh, God, what a shitty assignment.
So
And that's the only interesting thing happening because I have no goddamn internet at my house.
read a fucking book.
I am. I'm going through Doom Patrol.
That's not a book.
It's an omnibus.
Read something without pictures.
Too easy.
Pick up the Dark Tower series. It's probably cheap now. They've got it on clear. All those reprints they were doing for the release of the movie, they're all like $1 a piece now. It's like the losing team's merchandise from the Super Bowl.
So I just want to say thank you to our listeners for responding to our movie podcast last week. We had a blast doing it.
Yeah, sorry we followed it up with this one.
I think this one was good.
It was good.
I
had a good time doing it.
We really enjoyed interacting. We enjoyed the discussions beforehand, afterward. We're going to be doing more of that in the future. We're starting to put our list of lists together to talk about what lists we can do and what will get the most fan reaction. But thanks very much. We really enjoyed your input. Please like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share our links.
Like the YouTube videos. That's important too.
The more you spread the word, the more interaction we have and the more fun it is for everyone. So want to give the Twitter handles one more time?
You are at
Bob Ricotta.
James is at
PostJam9.
and I am at Giltastrophe.
I think that's a wrap, fellas.
All right, good work, boys. One quick message before James fades everything out.
Yeah.
We are going to try to get everyone to help us choose a topic for next week.
Unless we've already decided to go with best Ewoks.
From the expanded universe.
Yes.
Which we only had 1 vote for that.
Yeah.
We had more votes for worst race car
Those were
drivers.
not intended to be choices. They were intended to be examples. But
They were listed as such on on the Facebook, and people responded in kind.
I'm either underestimating or overestimating our audience. I'm not sure how many people actually wanted to hear a discussion of the worst race drivers of the 20th century, which would basically just be you while the rest of us make drinks.
We could talk about the worst racist drivers of the 20th century. Pretty much all of them.
James, play us out.
I'm going to play us out by hitting the stop button.